Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. Now, you all know that a third of us was up in the middle of the night. You already heard this? Yeah. And none of the other people came running to save us. Or maybe they were invisible. I just didn't notice them. Who was in Carrington Cottage? Who? You? No. About the fire engines.
I was at the chauffeur's car yesterday. I was up. I saw these lights. I was like, what is this? What is that?
We're being raided. Yeah. But now it's for the property's pretty flooded, even though the sluice gate and the dam and all that has been. Okay, keep passing them. Everybody got it? Okay, just read it. And we just got one of your deals 2 days before the close. Even though the property wasn't part of the deal, like I tell you, you don't want the property because the EBITDA is higher. It has to be higher. You notice the seller notified the you that the owner of the property will not extend the lease 48 hours before. And they won't sell to the you, which we don't want to buy. He says they'll sell to the current owner of the business, and then he would have to lease the property to us. And he wants some fucking outrageous number. So the basic deal's dead. 48 hours before. And that's on the simplest due diligence. Who owns the fucking property? Big time lawyers, big time accountants. Somehow they were led to believe, or they think they were led to believe. I wasn't at any of these meetings, so I can't tell you. But I know it's one of the questions I just ask. I said, who owns this shit, A lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money for the due diligence because it's a big enough deal where the accountants and the lawyers down the toilet. Okay. This kid who you saw, I've talked about, that he writes, he's getting ready to, Canadian, he's getting ready to hopefully close before year end. There's a slew. The kids just, it's like, when you see pictures of Mecca, when the Muslims go to Mecca and there's 42 million all running and people are stampeding and trampling each other. That's what it's like right now at Banks. And the little QLA guys are holding their little shit up and, getting run over by, some other assholes. Because now is the time. Because of the fact they're trying to get money out the door. It's incredible that year after year, and year after year, in the last 10 or 15 years, it's gotten worse, where more people get trampled. Because now everybody doesn't make it. I don't know why 400 or 500 people have to die at Mecca every year. I don't know that. You'd think that they could get their shit together after, a couple hundred years, right? And this women and children first. Whoever said that was brain dead. Because it doesn't exist. They're stepping on, I was on a plane that was going down once 30 years ago. People stepping on nuns and children to get over the top, to get out the escapes on the plane. Nuns, for real. I'm like this, huddled over a couple of nuns and a kid, little Chinese running over my back. So I was a big guy like you, I could have protected more. Unfortunately, the plane didn't crash, though. But I don't know if anybody's been in that situation. Okay, when you read that, what do you think of? Other than do what Mr. Peña says, but other than the obvious. Yes, sir.
Well, if you're saying that he was quiet during the seminar, but
He didn't ask one question.
yeah, very confident.
But that doesn't mean anything. Because most of the people that ask questions ask the wrong questions. And everybody asks questions based on their own insecurities, blah, 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 blah. Most of your insecurities could fit in 75 to 80% of your insecurities, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, it's all about the same. It's the same, pot. Everybody's got their own little gig that makes them different. But 75% of all the things, and whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, he's an introvert. He didn't ask any questions. And he's got a pretty sordid background, not just because he's been shot and gangbang shit like that, but that does separate, differentiate you.
But in his email, he's very confident.
Oh yeah, well, but he's doing well. He's had success in the steps, and he lives in a little town of 4,000 or 5,000 that's away from a major town in Canada, and he's practiced, and he's done all those things. He's closed his business down. He had a business where he put in windows and staircases or something like that. And his family, his local, the people that he hung with, or his family, were proud of him because he had a business that was doing well. He was taking care of his family, he was taking care of his parents, and all the benchmarks that they use to judge. And then he closed it down. And that's a shocker. Well, first of all, the people that he supports, who's going to pay my next rent?
They must hate you.
Huh?
They must hate you.
Yeah, oh yeah. The ones that really hate me are the kids that drop out of med school and that kind of thing. I mean, it's a blood vendetta. I'm sure that there's, and some of the kids are from those parts of the world where they do voodoo dolls and shit like that. I'm sure. When I wake up in the morning, God damn, my back hurts this morning. I'm sure it's because some old lady stuck a voodoo pin in my back. I remember about a year and a half ago, I woke up. I never get headaches. I had a pain like it was a fucking knife in the top of my head. I said, God damn, I never had that before. And so somebody said sarcastically, I'm sure, because I don't read the YouTube comments very carefully. I just scan through some. And he said, well, if you went back, somebody was saying they're going to put a pin in your head. But I like to see when the people on YouTube, they get at each other, they're fighting it out. And somebody will say something, a comment stupid by one of the commenters. And then, depending on who it is, they'll defend either the one that made the comment or the one that's defending. And it's interesting to hear them take sides. And it's easy to be vocal on those those anonymous. It's easy to have a big fucking mouth. I mean, we've all experienced that. In jobs, the boss is full of shit, this, that, and that. When in the meeting, yes, sir. But the hardcore has elicited a different kind of comments because of the nature of the breakouts. But some of the questions, where do you find the companies, the prospects you're talking about? We're not talking about the B school examples, but I mean, okay. And for the most part, most of you have said cold calling. Now, we say that, but they don't want to hear that. So they say, where the fuck did they come from? Because they don't want to be one of those 2,000 calls to be rich. Another question is, what if the seller finance isn't acceptable to the seller at all, at any level? They don't want to hear next, because that means all the obvious things we talk about. And so they ask these questions that are easily obtained from the conversations, if they listen carefully, and or the website, and or all the material that's online. But they ask those questions, and then once in a while, one of the people will comment, well, meathead, Dan's right, you're all meatheads. He said it, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of time, when you read the studies, 40% of the time for the average person is spent online, 40%. And so if they're working for you, you know that online, not business related. online Facebook, online porn, online anything but to find a company or to follow QLA. And again, I've said it almost every morning, if they spent half as much time on their idea, their business, building their dream team, instead of, commenting or having commentary on YouTube. And I know there are other places they have commentary. I don't look at those places. And I know that other podcasts have, people commenting. And our name comes up in other podcasts, if they just spent a fraction of that time on their deals. So what about the guy that's quiet now, but now he's confident? The point, one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you is that your actions here are not necessarily relevant to you going out and doing it. I was taught, and some of you were taught, you learn more by listening than flapping your mouth, and some of the kids actually live that. Some are just, not bullied, but are feel insecure or not comfortable, so they don't say anything. Now, some of you, not necessarily in this group, it's because English is in your primary language, and you sound funny, as Sally would say, and the same words don't mean the same thing in a different language. Now, the Australians could probably use that as an excuse, but they don't. But you know who I'm talking about, the ones that, who've got a different language. But somehow, even the ones that from Bulgaria and Hungary, etc., and Romania seem to be able to translate this good enough to make it work. But I mean, the point is that, and I keep driving it home, and I know you hear me intellectually, 98% of the high-performance people are introverts. 98%. Now, I know a few of you in here don't consider yourself introvert, but compared to me, you're an introvert. Now, when you were yelling yesterday, I felt right at home. I know that language. I can write that fucking speech. And one of the guys here was explaining what he was allegedly threatening to do if these guys got in the way of his deal or of him benefiting in a transaction, which is now complete. And so he wound up being the benefactor. But the language, even the people that were in that room, they kind of looked at you strangely. But it's not strange words. We all know the words. Not many of us as a group have used them because of all of the PC bullshit that we've talked about. And you get more flies with honey than you do, some bullshit like that. But the guys that we've talked about and built America, not the least of which is Carnegie and Rockefeller and these various other guys, weren't that at all. They were rough sons of bitches. And now just think about it. They are considered the icons that built America. And we're talking about America now, but you could talk about any part of the world. When they were doing it, they were assholes. Again, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. Any questions about anything? Roberto is going to, later on this morning, is going to tell us his saga, his tale of not woe. In the beginning, it might have been woe, but his tale of success and how he made this work. And he'll relate to his big smile that he had. And he had already been successful there. He had already turned the business around. So he had a bunch of successes, or maybe not a bunch, but a few. And plus he led sales, and the sales is what turned it around. And remember, I've told you, if you have a choice between a bean counter and a salesman, you can always find a bean counter. You can always outsource bean counting, but you can't hardly ever outsource sales that drive the top line. Any questions on anything? Yep.
Over the last couple of days, when you say this place costs a fortune, from the dam to the toilet to the fire brigade, it's just non-stop.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, believe me. I mean, we have 2 fix-it guys, plumbers, carpenters, roofers, electricians, they're all in one, One of the guys went around, he's got a ponytail, his name Dave, and the other one looks without the ponytail. So we got ponytail and non-ponytail, but something is always breaking, something. And when the frost comes and freezing, and pipes start freezing, and some of these old pipes that we haven't had replaced are made out of like clay. They're not, they're not metal or anything like that. And when they burst, now they have modern stuff. You can go find where it's broken or where it's leaking. 30 years ago, they didn't have those machines, whatever they are, sonar or whatever, and something is always breaking. And we've replaced just about, I say this, we've replaced just about every goddamn thing there is to replace. The Thunderbox toilets, which we only have one, which is by the main hall, that's the one you pull the lever, and I tell you to stand up, otherwise you're going to get a free douche, because the water comes down from 2 stories, boom! And so the guys that are taking a pee don't have to worry about it, but the gals taking a pee, sometimes they pull that fucking thing, and then they come out, the whole back end of them is wet, They get a free douche. And but we had 22 Thunderboxes toilets. Now we only have 1. We close all the rest down. We put regular toilets in, and we cannibalize the parts because they don't make those parts from the 1800s anymore. So we cannibalize all those, and we got them stored someplace around the estate. And when something breaks, we pray that we have it in our collection, or the handy guys can make one, because if we have to go out into the real world, they're not available. Other than you have to buy a whole Thunderbox unit to get one little fucking piece of it. And they're glad to sell them to you, because there's not such a great need, because almost all the Thunderboxes have been shut down. Not just because and you put signs, stand up before you flush, but because people have complained about how archaic they are, and they are archaic. There's no question about that. But I mean, we have stuff break all the time. Yes.
On icons that build America, we credit.
Well, were there any Mexicans or Puerto Ricans or on those lists? Not. I'm just to make sure that you were looking at the same one I've looked at. Go ahead.
I doubt it. We credit Andrew Carnegie with the LBO model. J.P. Morgan was already consolidating failing industries with his own money, or with. Well,
he was using his money, but not really. He was using the bank's money, which wasn't his money. When he paid $450 million or whatever that number was, I mean, people like to think that it was J.P. Morgan's money. No, it was the moron depositors' money. Because in the old days, when they were called merchant banks, they actually took depositors' money and put it at risk. For example, when the ships that used to go back and forth to the New World, okay, they used to raise, let's say, equivalent of $1 million. A new ship, they're going to put 60 people on there with plants and stuff like that, and they're going to go. That money was a consortium. That's one of the reasons I use the word consortium. A consortium of a bank. It was J.P. Morgan's bankers' money. Now there's regulations, unless you know that they're putting it at risk, they can lend it out 20 to 40 times every dollar you deposit into a bank account. But you have to specify if you want your money to be able to be risk capital to go into, like what we would call a private equity fund now. But that wasn't his money. So what's the question? Or did I answer it?
You answered it, yes.
Okay. But, and it's really not the LBO model, leverage buyout, because they didn't look at it that way. Carnegie just didn't want to he didn't want to dilute his interests by taking equity. And there's almost no way to take equity in without diluting your interest.
And Morgan was buying failing businesses, while the QLA model used to buy.
Correct.
Cash.
Now, if this was hardcore 5, not this is 5, but if this was the PhD, yeah, I mean, there are other ways to do this, but when you add other layers, you add more risk. because you never know what's going to happen. And it's not that I don't have. It's not that I don't want you to act frivolous with the money, because I say it's not your money, it's monopoly money. But at the end of the day, you're not going to die from it. And now when we add non-recourse, again, you're not going to take the money and load up your pickup truck and take the money from the bank and run to Tibet. But it's a different kind of pressure. If you know you're not going to lose everything you have, it's a different kind of pressure. It's still pressure, but it's a different kind of pressure, you know. But the kids, the questions they ask, they say, I've read everything on your website. Well, if you read everything on my website and actually absorbed it, you wouldn't have any questions. What they really mean is that they flip through. You know, it's like you put Dan Peña and you flip through the first 5 or 10 pages. Most people don't even flip through the first 5, but they're pretending. You know, they're pretending to want to be high performance, and they think that by spending 2 or 3 hours scanning the internet, it's the same as pulling the trigger. And that's why I have what I have against podcasts, books, and Kindles, or whatever the shit you read, is because you've been led to believe that taking action is reading a book. You've been led to believe that taking action is going to a seminar. You've been led to believe listening to a podcast. And there are, I don't listen regularly to anybody's podcast, but there's a few guys, like I mentioned Jocko. He's so popular because he's a real guy, a real man, and people can relate. Either they can personally relate to that vis-a-vis their own military background, or they can relate to it because, he stands up like he had a pair. And most of the business, I was just reading an email from one of the big 4 accounting firms, pathetic, because I can tell by the way his tone is, he knows this deal's going sideways, and he knows he's not going to get any fucking fees. So he's starting to acquiesce. Well, even though I told you we couldn't do this because it wasn't in your best interest, maybe we can change it. It's still not in your best interest. He's not saying that part. And he's not saying this, so I can get paid. But that's exactly what he's doing. And in some cases, I would say, go ahead and do it. But in some cases, I'd say, fuck no. They're the ones that led us down the green rose path. Any other? Yes, sir.
So the existing owner of that business was an accountant?
No. The existing owner of that business was a mom and pop, just like we talk about. 58 and 62, I think. The guy was 62. The gal was 58. It was substance abuse, healthcare, and they wanted out. The kids, just like we talk about, kids, nothing to do with it. They're going to be at the close to get cash, though. I mean, that's you will die when that happens. The kids don't want to talk to you, but they're at the close, so they can get make sure that their name is earmarked for part of the distribution. Now, if I was a parent, you know what I do, but because the parents still want their kids to like them, and their parents still want to be able to have access to their grandchildren. He's still growing up. Or what I love to hear, he's going through a phase. Now, I don't know what that means, but whatever phase it is, I don't like. And he's going through a phase. Now, when I was, a teenager, I was going through a phase. That's what they used to say about me. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, my phase is still current, but I haven't changed much. Now, you've heard me say this, 1991, when I was alumni of the year, alumni of the history of the school, and they're interviewing Dr. Shirley Teeter, who was the dean of the School of Business, and I was her assistant in graduate school. Dr. Teeter, you know Mr. Peña a long, long time. What changes? And she looks right into the camera and says, the only thing about Danny Peña is his accomplishments have caught up with his big fucking mouth. Now, this is a woman who would not say shit if it was in her mouth. I never heard her swear in 25, 30 years. But the animosity that had been built up over all these years, because I went out and did exactly what I said, plus. And her predecessor, he resigned from being dean of the School of Business and went out. His name is Howard Shenson. You Google him. He's arguably the father of management consulting. I said, if this shit's so good, Howard, go out and show the world. Well, he went out and showed the world, and he got rich, and he died, unfortunately, young. But she said, his accomplishments caught up with his big fucking mouth. But whereas, I've told you this before, remember Muhammad Ali when he was Cassius Clay? He was running around before he beat anybody. I'm the greatest, right? He had a big fucking mouth. Of course, now everybody talks trash. But he was one of the first trash talkers. And I know when Sonny Liston just laughed about it, Floyd Patterson laughed, all the current day guys at that time, they just laughed about it. He's just a kid, what the fuck's he know, Well, he went out and did it, though. You guys don't talk trash. Because if you say, I'm the greatest, or whatever you say, and then Allah forbid, or God forbid, it doesn't come to fruition, that's just another negative piece of shit that you got to carry on your back, in your mind. But, President Trump has, I think, had 22 bankruptcies in all the companies, but he's got 2,000 companies. To only have 22 bankruptcies, it's phenomenal. But he certainly, he has tried to take advantage of his name, Trump, vodka, Trump's, all the stuff that he's had. But when you lead from the front, remember, the board members are there to govern, you're there to lead. When you lead from the front at a meeting, you know that you've arrived as the founder at a board meeting, and you've got a chairman, and they look at you for an answer. Then you know you've arrived, okay? Roberto's in that position now. They look at him. And he shows several successes. One big time success, even though he was the benefactor. He did it. And the odds were against him. I remember him saying, I may have to use private equity, but I'm going to do everything humanly possible not to. Or words of that effect. And that's exactly what happened. And so the board members, the old board members and his new board know that. And so he has done what he said he was going to do. And your board, when they look to Alex, he's probably a bad example because he's a big fuck, but when he looks at Alex for the answer and he's not the chairman or person, then you know that he exhibited the right kind of leadership. And for most of you, you have never been put in that position. And for the young kids, it's harder. It just is. And that's why normally the young kids, not always, but normally, more than half of the time you pick the wrong board members in the beginning because you had an uncle or somebody and who you thought was a strong character, not character in a bad sense, but he had a strong personality. So you pick somebody to be, this kind of reminds you of your uncle. And your uncle may have showed that, but he didn't really have those leadership traits, and so then they fail you. And in the beginning, one of the biggest things for the young guys, and you're all young to me, but the young guys, as I illustrated, is that when they let you down, you take it too personal. It's like your older brother let you down, or your dad let you down. Well, your dads have let you down already, so we don't know. But, somebody's let you down. Because when they say they're going to get it done, it's different than with somebody like me. We're going to get it fucking done, come hell or high water. And that's what you want. And that's the kind of reputation you want to build for yourself. When you guys say it's going to get done, and you tell the bankers, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. And then you take care of it. That's where you want to be. Okay, YouTube, thank you.